Thank you very much. When I talk at this level, can everyone hear me okay? Very good. I was giving a presentation in China possibly 10, 15 years ago, and the audience was much larger and asked the same question, and there was no response. So I spoke up a little, said, can everyone hear me okay? And I repeated myself a few times until the lady who organized the talk said, Mr. Marr, they can all hear you, they just can't understand you. Which is, it's not a fantastic start to any presentation. Thank you so much for having me. What I want to do today is talk about some of the biggest business trends that we all need to be ready for. And mainly talk about some of the technology trends that are going to transform all of our organizations. I will set the scene a little bit, give you some background, but for me the key message is that artificial intelligence is going to transform your organization. I spend my time working with executive teams of companies of all sizes and shapes, helping them to understand how technologies like AI are going to transform organizations. And slightly controversial, I believe that if you don't see yourself as an AI company, or at least an AI-enabled business, you will seriously face challenges over the next 10 years. And this is, for me, such a transformative technology. I've written about future trends now for the last 20 years, and I've never seen anything like this AI revolution that I will touch on. So, I've talked about AI, but actually what I feel passionate and believe is one of the most important trends is that we need to become sustainable and change the relationship we have with our planet. This is one of the big macro trends that we have to address as society and as a world. And at the moment, this is not going in the right direction if we're seeing some of the things that are happening in the US and other parts of the world. So this sustainability is absolutely crucial. Another big macro trend is this increasing polarization of our world. We're seeing something, just the announcements yesterday about tariffs. We're seeing power shifts and power struggles between the US and China and Russia and other parts of the world. And we're seeing a big demographic shift as well, new generations coming along. And all of this creates a completely different business dynamic that all businesses need to be ready for. For me, the most transformative trend is what I call this era of hyper-innovation. We've seen so many different industrial revolutions driven by steam, by electricity, by computers. And lots of people are talking about this fourth industrial revolution that we are in at the moment. I actually believe that we are not going to see an industrial revolution that is driven by a single technology, but one that what we will see is this continuous acceleration of innovation, where AI sits right in the middle of it, but it impacts so many other technologies that we'll touch on today that I think have real implications and individually could trigger a new industrial revolution. So if you take one thing away from today, we will see change beyond anything we've seen ever before in the world, and innovation at a rate that is much faster and much more transformative. So what is causing all of this? On the basis, we have what I call ubiquitous computing. We now have cloud computing, computing available anywhere. We have computing in tiny little devices, and at some point everything, all devices, all products will have some sort of intelligence built in. We also have increasing edge computing capabilities, so instead of sending everything to the cloud, to a data center somewhere over the internet, we'll have these capabilities in our devices, in your machinery, in your plants, in your cars, in our mobile phones, and they can now run AI by themselves. This is further enabled by things like 5G network technology that now in your plants you can now build private 5G networks that connect all of your plants and all of your devices. And we have other technologies on the horizon. One particular is quantum computing. This is a fascinating technology that completely rethinks how computers work, and they operate at a subatomic level. And what is crazy about it is that in traditional computers, we have bits and bytes, right, ones and twos, and every problem we are solving with these computers is basically calculated sequentially, one after the other. They are now so fast that we can even break really complex problems down into something super easy. Quantum computing are not just 1 and 2, they can be 1 and 2 at the same time, which means we can solve really complex problems in unbelievably fast scenarios that we've never seen before. So if a traditional computer wanted to find a person in a megacity, it would have to visit every house individually until they find it, right? A quantum computer could look at all houses simultaneously. So this gives us computing power that is 1 trillion times more powerful. Also has real security implications because it can break all our encryptions that we use today. So this is a technology that is just on the horizon. What we've seen over the last 15 years is this datafication of our world, where we are producing more data than ever before. We currently have something in the region of 75 to 80 zettabytes of data in the world. This is a mind-blowing number. What is fascinating is that about 90% of this amount of data was generated in the last 3 years. And between now and the end of 2026, this will grow to over 175 zettabytes. So we'll see this massive explosion in the amount of data that we've never seen before. When I work with organizations, what I see is that they actually leverage less than 1% of the data they already have, and a tiny fraction of the data they could potentially use. Just one example out of millions is satellite data. So I was working with a UK construction company, and they wanted to understand progress on their construction sites. And in the past, this was really complicated because they needed to look at project reports and progress, and if they also wanted to see how they compare to their competitors, and they couldn't really access this data unless they sent some spies out to other construction sites to see how much progress they were making. Enter the era of low orbit satellites. These circle the Earth all the time, private companies selling this data, high resolution images, so they now buy this data in, use an artificial intelligence algorithm to analyze those images, and automatically get progress reports on their own construction sites as well as their competitors. We also now have this world where everything is connected and everything is smart and intelligent. And I said that before, I believe at some point pretty much everything will have a microchip in it and will collect some data and transmit data. We're already seeing this in our domestic appliances where ovens can already monitor your food using cameras and machine vision technology, where your toaster will tell its manufacturer how well it is used. Your car is already doing it, your smartphone is doing it, your smart TV is doing it, your smart watches are already doing that. And all of these trends have laid the foundation for this intelligence revolution, this AI revolution. And this will be the most transformative technology in my lifetime and your lifetime. Just one little example that puts this into perspective and hopefully makes it relevant to you as well, because this is a medium-sized salmon farm in Norway, right? And they work with me to look at some of the challenges they had. And as a business, they had two main challenges. When you grow salmon in these sea pens, you want them all to grow at the same rate, to the same size, right? But in nature, that doesn't really happen because you normally put the food into these pens, and the stronger ones will eat more food and the weaker ones will stay weaker. And it's just nature, right? The other thing they wanted to do is to monitor diseases. And in the past, all they had was spot checks. So they would drive out with a boat, catch a few salmon, check if they had sea lice or any other diseases that could really easily spread in those pens. And they said, these are two big challenges for us. So how can we use technology like AI and everything I've just talked about? So they said, why don't we create a feeding station that recognizes the salmon and only gives a feeding pellet to each salmon once a day. So what they're now doing is face recognition for salmon. Instead of putting an undersea cable in, they created a private 5G network out to their sea pens. The feeding station now has a camera in it. It basically recognizes the salmon based on the dots on the top of their head because they're uniquely identifiable. So they solved this first problem of fish growing to the same size immediately. And the other thing is they're using high-resolution cameras because these fish swim around a circle. They have this little system where if they spot that one of the fish has sea lice on them, they can isolate them because they have to swim through this little channel. The channel closes, puts the fish aside, they can take it out, nothing spreads. And for me, this is such an amazing example that a very, very traditional organization or company like a salmon farming company in Norway can now leverage this sort of technology that we are talking about here. So Tim said it would be useful to talk about AI and how it has evolved. We've now had AI for the last 50 years. And the first versions of AI were basically where we had to tell the algorithm everything it needed to know, right? And so we had AIs to recognize labels on a letter, handwritten labels. That was easy because you can say this is what an A looks like and the different variations, these are what the different towns are, these are different postcodes, and the AI can therefore determine this with very good accuracy. Then we had the big breakthrough, IBM Deep Blue versus Garry Kasparov. I don't know whether you still remember this. But this was, again, using computing brute force, where we could tell the AI, these are the rules of chess. And then I could just use computers to calculate more possible moves than a human could with our brain. And therefore, over time, the computer will always win because it can calculate all possible moves and can therefore optimize every single move it is making. Since then, things are changing. So there are other problems that we couldn't solve with traditional AIs because we didn't actually know the rules. So if you said, if your job was to create an AI to create a self-driving car, we couldn't actually do this, right? Because this is so complex. There are so many scenarios. There's so many quirks, so many crazy things happening on the roads that we can't actually give them, the algorithm, all the information it needs. So this is when we started using machine learning. So this is a new type of AI that almost starts with a blank page. And what Tesla and other companies are now doing is they're monitoring how we're driving our Tesla cars, and every bit of information from cameras to sensors is fed back to their data center, and this is feeding the AI to learn how to drive. So it's learning from billions of data points a day, and millions of drivers and millions of miles driven every single day. But then there's still other things where we don't have this ability to just use data to learn from. And one of the biggest challenges was something like playing the board game Go. So Go is an ancient Asian game that is about 1 trillion times more complex than chess. And lots of it's impossible for any supercomputer today to basically calculate all possible moves ahead of the next move. So some of the grandmasters in Go would say that they are playing intuitively. They can't really explain why they're making certain moves. And this was a perfect example for this problem with AI, that Google and DeepMind were looking at this saying, how can we train an AI to play this game when we can't actually explain the rules? So what they did is they gave all the previous game knowledge that has ever been recorded to an AI, and it became quite good, but it couldn't beat the grandmasters. What it then did is it created 2 completely empty AIs. It only gave them the rules of the game, and these 2 AIs played against each other millions and millions of times. And then they figured out how to play quite well. And then they had a similar competition like Garry Kasparov versus IBM Deep Blue. This time it was Lee Sedol versus Google DeepMind. And the AI was playing well. And then in one of the games, it made a move that all the commentators were gasping at, saying, okay, the AI is not quite there yet because we've never seen this crazy move before. And this must be it will definitely cause the AI to lose. 10, 15 moves later, it became very clear that the AI made a move that no human has ever done, and it won. So this very often is held up as the first time that an AI was creative, that it did something it didn't learn from us. And this is where we are today, that we now have these AIs that can learn from themselves and by themselves, and AIs that they are starting to be creative and do things we've never seen before. We're now at the age of generative AI. This is AI that can generate content. How many of you use generative AI? Some. Things like ChatGPT. You ask it a question, it can answer it, but these AIs can do so much more. They can not only write text and your social media copy, but they can analyze data. They can create computer code. They can create apps. They can create images. They can create music, and even videos and films. And just as an example, this image was created by ChatGPT. So I just said I needed an image that shows a computer that can generate lots of different things like photos, videos, images, text, and I couldn't find anything in the stock image library that I normally use. So I said, create me one. Currently, generative AI is also augmenting decision-making. With all of the data that companies now have access to, there's always a challenge. Can we actually extract value from this data? And these generative AI systems that have been trained on all the language and all the written words in the world, for whatever reason, are also very good at analyzing data. So we can now ask the AI, look at all our machinery data and tell us something that we don't know. It can give us answers saying which of our customers are more likely to churn. Can you analyze it? Analyze our employee data and tell us something about it. And it will do this, which is completely democratizing how companies are now accessing data and using data, because we can have a natural conversation with our data. It's also enabling things like predictive maintenance, because all of the machines have sensor technology in them. The AI can collect this data and optimize our plants and optimize maintenance schedules. And it's also now merging with physical intelligence. We've had robots for a long time, but they usually sit behind cages in big manufacturing plants. These AIs are becoming smarter. We're now merging these generative AI capabilities and modern sensor technology with robotics to have true cobots, co-working robots that work alongside us. And one of the biggest tech company on the planet took me on a behind-the-scenes tour in the robotics lab. And I was able to watch 2 things. One was where 2 robots were learning to play football. And no one told them, these robots, how to play football. They were just figuring it out by themselves, playing the game all day long. And another AI was learning how to grab a piece of Lego and put this into a little slot, almost like what I used to do with my children when you teach them motor skills and say, this is how you pick this shape up, and this is how you figure out where to go, where to put it in. And this AI was doing exactly the same. It was learning by itself how to do things, which is really mind-blowing. And then we went on, an AI researcher then said, okay, I can fast-track this program. So I use another robot that sits next to it. I can use my little haptic glove to help the AI to pick up the piece of Lego. I put this bit of code that it learned and transferred it into the robot that was trying to pick up the piece but couldn't quite, and very quickly it was able to do it and improve on this really rapidly. And even 10 years ago, I would give a presentation saying, actually, things like picking strawberries is something that robots will never be able to do. Because you need someone to find the strawberry, to figure out is it ripe enough to pick, and then they need to have the dexterity to pick it without squashing it. This is a commercial strawberry picking robot that uses machine vision technology, slightly different planting because it's vertical planting, so all the plants drop to the bottom, and this thing now operates 24 hours a day, very efficiently harvesting strawberries. We see this in warehousing, where we now have a lot of automation, stock taking, collecting, picking. Lots of companies are now even creating digital twins of their warehouses. So a digital copy, which they then can optimize. And the latest evolution, if this wasn't all big enough, the latest evolution of AI is agentic AI. AI that acts as an agent for you, that can do things. So OpenAI, the company that released ChatGPT, just last week announced Operate. This is a model that can search the internet for you, fill out forms, click on websites. So you can say to it, hey, find me the best holidays for my family in Turkey. Then you have a bit of a conversation saying, what do you want? How many of you? Hopefully over time, this AI will really get to know you, and then can go off and find the best deals. It can fill out all the forms, it can look at all the websites, compare prices for you, and then can even book the holidays for you. And OpenAI is currently working with companies like OpenTable and DoorDash to do the shopping for you and book restaurants for you. And this is no longer science fiction, this is happening already. All of this AI is also super powerful. If you can think, this AI can now click on websites and program computer code and check computer code and create apps. This also creates completely new attack vectors for organizations. So cybersecurity is hugely important. And it's not just cybersecurity, it's cyber resilience, because most companies now realize that you will get a cyber attack at some point. It's more important to be resilient and be aware of what you will do when this happens, and that you have backup systems in place and know how to get them up and running again. Another major trend is a more immersive digital world. Some of you might still remember the big word metaverse when people talk about a more immersive internet using augmented reality, virtual reality. If you have a chance to try out the Apple Vision Pro glasses, walk into an Apple shop and do the demo, and you will understand what I'm talking about here. It is pretty mind-blowing, where we can not only create these digital worlds, but we can increasingly manipulate them. So we have this digitally editable real world. One of the industries I do a lot of work with is Formula One. So as an example, when F1 designs a new car, 90% of the time the car is designed, it stays digital only. And they now have digital wind tunnels, where they use a digital twin of the car to optimize it. In between races, there's a lot of setups that need to change, and all the different wings need to change if they move from a fast race like Monza to a slow race like Monaco. So this car, lots of components change. All of this is now simulated. So they have a simulated version of the racetrack in Monaco and a digital version of their race car. They will optimize all the different setups until they're happy, and then they press a button, and then a 3D printer will print the components for them. So these 3D printers at Red Bull can actually print composite materials, pretty mind-blowing. And we're now seeing this where creatives now collaborate with AIs. So this motorcycle frame was developed by an AI. So all the designer did is gave the AI lots of different parameters, saying I want it to be lightweight, I want it to be really flexible, I want it to be, I need to have a tank somewhere in there, and so on. And then the AI came up with lots of different versions of this motorcycle frame, until the designer said, okay, I really like this one, this makes sense, and then again you press a button and it's 3D printed for you. For me, hopefully this has given you some food for thought in terms of where we are today and how transformative potentially this will be for your business. The key is that you don't use this, or you don't approach it from a fear of missing out, FOMO, angle, but you really look at this from a strategic perspective, saying, as a sheet plant business, where can I use this technology? How will it transform certain aspects of my life, be this marketing, warehousing, operations, machinery, whatever it might be. And then you need to think about the key business challenges you want to solve, and then address this. For me, a recent bit of research here in the UK found that only 2% of employees use generative AI regularly in their job. I find this crazy. How can this be that a technology that can potentially make your jobs 40 to 60% more productive? I've just interviewed a CEO of a very large company that said all day long he interacts with generative AI almost as a thought partner. He's given all the information about his own business to the AI, about the competitors to the AI, and any major decision now is jointly made as a thought partner, someone that is a super intelligent advisor that sits next to you. And skills. These new systems will completely transform how we work, and therefore what skills we will need in our businesses. And if you buy into the fact that we are now seeing this new hyper innovation cycle, what will come with it is the ability to constantly learn, unlearn, and relearn. So learning will become a key skill. And actually what will set us as humans apart in the future is our ability to use AIs effectively, but mainly the things that make us truly human. Things like our emotional intelligence, our creativity, our strategic thinking, all the things that make humans humans, interpersonal communication, critical thinking. And those are the skills we need to build more of. And we need to get people in your business using those systems so they develop the skills and competencies so you will not get left behind. All of this, each time I give a presentation, I get the same reactions, people saying this is, on the one hand side, super exciting, on the other hand, really scary as well. But for me, it offers huge opportunities to make our world a better place, to focus on the things we as humans should be focusing on, and give the mundane, the boring, the things that suck the productivity out of us every single day to the AI. And if we are able to do this, we will create a better world, a more productive world, and hopefully a more sustainable world. So I am hugely excited about many of these opportunities. Okay, hopefully that was interesting and has given you some food for thought. If you want any more, there's plenty of information on my website and on my YouTube channel, where you can read hundreds, thousands of articles and watch videos on any of these trends in a lot more depth. Thank you very much.